Harbour Hippo.
Special hello to our Captain Tom up front here. So on the count of 3, we're all going to say ahoy, Captain Tom. Now is everyone ready? 1, 2, 3.
Ahoy, Captain Tom!
Great job, everyone. Now my name is Hannah. I'll be your tour guide for both of the next hour or so. But before we get started, I'll tell you all just a little bit about myself. So I was born and raised here in PEI. I grew up in a little town called St. Peter's Bay in the eastern part of the island. It's very close to Greenwich National Park, if anyone's heard of that before. I'd recommend checking it out if you guys get the chance. A couple months ago, I graduated from the Tourism and Travel Management program at Holland College, and that is one of our post-secondary institutions here in PEI. Now I work here at the Harbour Hippo, and I'm so excited to show all of you guys my home and my favorite island. Now you'll notice this vehicle, it's pretty big and it's quite noticeable out here on the roads. So if you see any pedestrians walking around, don't be afraid to give a few waves. Islanders are known to be pretty friendly, so you'll usually get some waves back. Now here in PEI, we are divided into 3 separate counties. From east to west, we have Kings County, that's where I'm from. We also have Queens County, which we're in now, and in the west we have Prince County. So right now we're in the capital city of Charlottetown. And here in Charlottetown, we have a population of about 40,000 people. And all of PEI, we have a population of about 140,000. So we're not very big here on the island. Prince Edward Island is the smallest province in Canada, both by size and population. So right now, we are driving down Water Street. You might notice it runs parallel to the Charlottetown Harbour, which is just on your left on the other side of this building. You'll see it in a moment. This also is called Water Street because back in the day, the water used to run right up along the buildings here on your left-hand side. So everything on the opposite side of the road over here is actually man-built land. So you get to see the harbour, just really quickly off there to your left. And right now we're heading up Great George Street. So this street is recognized as a National Historic Street of Canada by the federal government. It's one of 2 in the whole country. So the only other one is called Spark Street. That's located in our capital of Ottawa, our Parliament buildings. And this is a National Historic Street because this is the street our fathers of Confederation walked up in 1864 when they arrived in the harbour. And they walked all the way up to Province House straight ahead to attend the Charlottetown Conference, which took place in 1864, and that conference led to the Confederation of Canada. I'll tell you all a little bit more about that story later on. Coming up here on your left in a moment, you'll see a big, beautiful church. It's called St. Dunstan's Basilica, and this is our largest church here in PEI. Now, the lot actually has a little bit of bad luck because this was the 4th church to be built in this location. 2 of them were small wooden churches, and they both burnt down in fires. Another one, they wanted to move it into the lot next door here in this parking lot. So they hoisted it up on logs and attached it to horses for them to pull. But something happened and one of the horses got spooked. That caused a chain reaction, and then the church fell to pieces in the middle of the road. So they built that one there in 1911, and it's been standing ever since. Straight ahead we have Province House. Now as we drive by, everyone take a look at the balcony. You might notice there's something missing up there. Can anyone tell me what it is? It's actually missing a couple things.
Railing?
It is missing a railing. One more thing. A door, you got it. So the balcony wasn't added until after the construction of the building. That made it a little bit inconvenient because anytime any politicians or anybody important wanted to go out there and make a speech for everybody, they had to climb out the window. So they built a special staircase just for royalty back in the 1950s because they didn't want to do that. Now to your left, just after this bus here, the building over there is called the Honorable George Coles Building. That is named after our first premier here in PEI, and that is is where we store all of our provincial archives. Now once again to your left, you'll see two buildings over here. These are the St. Paul's Church Parish buildings. Now you might notice that the stones on these buildings have a bit of a black tinge to them. Can anybody guess what that black color comes from? What's that? No, it's a good guess.
Oxidation.
Yeah, very good. People don't usually get the answer to that one. I'm impressed. So the stones that were used to make these buildings, they came from our neighboring provinces of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. And basically they were not used to our humid, salty air here that we have in PEI. And so through a chemical process called oxidation, it turned the stones black. So any buildings you see around Charlottetown with the black on their stones, that's when you know that the stones are not from here. They're from away, as we like to call it here on the island. Now coming up on your left once again, just next to the parish buildings, you'll see St. Paul's Anglican Church. Now you'll probably notice that the stones on this building are not black. That's because it's made up of our own island sandstone. Now you might also notice that the stones are all kind of different shapes and sizes on the building. That's because our sandstone here in PEI is very weak and brittle. It falls apart quite easily. You can actually just crush it in your hands. So they could not properly cut the stones to all be the same size. So they just left them as they were and put them all together kind of like a puzzle. This was also the first church here in Charlottetown to stop charging a fee to rent out the pews. Back in the day, you used to have to pay either a monthly or an annual fee to reserve your place in the church, but they stopped doing so, and luckily, all the other churches followed suit. So you don't pay to go to church anymore, which is pretty nice. And we actually have about 300 churches here in PEI, which is quite a lot when you consider how small we are. We actually have the most churches per capita than anywhere else in Canada. To your left, you'll see a nice little park over there. It's called Boulder Park, and that's one is a little bit unique because it actually has a stone from every province and territory in Canada. Now over there, you'll get another view of Province House, our main government building here in Charlottetown. Normally, you can do tours of Province House, but it's currently under some renovations, so it's actually closed for the time being. So they're preparing for next year, when we will celebrate the 150th anniversary of Canada. Just now we're heading back up Great George Street. So this is the other side of Great George. Now this used to be called University Avenue, but they just changed the name back a couple of years ago. And it was called University Avenue because on the opposite end of this street, way on the other side of town, we have our University of Prince Edward Island. That's our only university here in PEI. It's very well known for its business and arts programs and its science faculty as well. And it's also home to the Atlantic Veterinary College, which is the only veterinary college east of Montreal. There's quite a high demand for that one. They say that it's harder to get into that veterinary school than it is to get into most medical schools. Now here on Great George Street, you'll probably notice we have a lot of great cafes and shops to check out. I'll point out a few. Just there to your right is Timothy's Coffee. That one's really great. Up there on your right, you'll see Hop Yard. That place is fairly new, and they actually have a different menu at Hop Yard every single week, so you never really get tired at Hop Yard. It's pretty cool. Another favorite of mine coming up on your right here is called David's Tea. I'm sure you've all seen one of those before. To your left with the big green sign, that's called Cedar's Eatery. That's a great place to get some Lebanese food. Right above it is called Baba's Lounge, and people like to go there on the weekends to hear some music. And if anybody likes Irish food or Irish beer, here on the corner to your left we have the Old Triangle. And they have Kaylee's here every Tuesday night. So if you guys are around tomorrow, it might be a fun place to check out. To your right here on the corner, you'll see the Jean Canfield building. This is known to be one of the greenest buildings in all of Canada. So as we drive by, you probably notice that the whole side of the building is covered in solar panels. About 40% of the electricity used in the building comes from those solar panels, and it also collects rainwater on the roof. That's used for things like flushing the toilets. So here in PEI, we're very environmentally friendly, and we take pride in that. In the year 2000, we implemented our waste watch system where we started separating all of our garbage. So all of our waste and compost and recyclables as well. Now for the first few weeks that we started doing this, if more than 30% of your waste was actually non-waste, we sent it back to you and you had to sort through it all by yourself. So we learned very quickly here on the island, and we actually reduced the waste in our landfills by about 70%. So we're definitely doing our part here in Prince Edward Island. Many call us the Green Province or the Garden Province. Now as we continue down this street, you'll all notice we're heading into a little bit of a residential area of Charlottetown. There's a lot of beautiful homes down this street and many historic homes as well. I'll point out a couple in just a moment. There's one coming up here on your right-hand side. The big yellow house here on the corner. This is a historic building here in Charlottetown, and it's called Fitzroy Hall. It was originally home to a 14-member family, but obviously our families are not quite that large anymore, so they turned it into a bed and breakfast. Up here in the corner to your left, you'll see another church. This is the Kirk of St. James Presbyterian Church, and many believe that this one is haunted by a few gentlemen who used to attend, but they drowned in the Charlottetown Harbour. Now to your right, the house with the address 222. Right above those numbers, you may have noticed a black plaque on the outside of the building. Now if you missed it, don't worry, you'll probably see a few more of those plaques on some of the buildings around town. Any buildings that you see with those plaques on it, that means that it's a historic building here in Charlottetown. And on the plaques, it includes the date the building was built and the original purpose of the building as well. So the city likes to keep those historic buildings around as best as they can. So they offer tax incentives to the owners and funding for renovations as well. Any changes they want to make to the homes first needs to be approved by the city, and there also are only a select few colors that the owners are allowed to paint the homes to keep them historically accurate. Now I'll mention, just as we drove through a stoplight there, you may come across a few more of those on our tour. That's because we also have the most stoplights per capita than anywhere else in Canada. So a few other things we have the most of here on the island. We also have the most lighthouses, the most golf courses, the most Tim Hortons, and the most liquor stores as well. Now at this part of the tour, I like to do a little bit of trivia, see how much you all know about our island. But before we do we have any islanders on board today? You? Okay, we got a few, very good. Let's see if you guys know these. First question, does anybody know what our provincial flower is here in PEI? Yeah? Yeah, very good. I think I heard someone else say it too. It's a lady slipper. So the lady slipper is a beautiful purple orchid. We don't have a lot of them here on the island. We used to, but we picked so many of them, they became quite rare, and now it's actually illegal to pick them. So if anybody finds a lady slipper, don't pick it up. We want to keep them around as long as we can. Next question. Does anybody know what our provincial bird is here in PEI? Any non-islanders know it? Alright, what is it? Blue jay, very good. So we don't have a lot of blue jays here in the city either, but if you head out to the country, you'd probably see lots of them flying around. Now, final question. Let's see if you can get 3 for 3. Does anyone know what our provincial tree is? This one's a bit tougher. I'll tell you right off the bat, it's not a maple. That's what most people think it is, because we have lots of maple trees. Yeah? It's a red oak. Very good. I'm impressed. Alright, so many people are surprised that our provincial tree is a red oak because we don't have many of those around either, but there's a reason for that. The red oak tree played quite an important role in our tall shipbuilding industry back in the 1800s, so we cut most of them down and used them to build our tall ships. And that industry actually made us quite wealthy back in the day. Islanders were some of the richest people in all of British North America at that time. And it made us so wealthy that in 1867, when Canada became a country, they asked us to join them. But we were doing so well off on our own that we actually declined. We said, no, we don't need you guys, we're doing all right. We were so wealthy, we thought we would build ourselves a railway here in PEI. But the man we hired to build the railway, he wanted to be paid by the mile. So of course, he zigged and zagged across the island, made the railway as long as he possibly could, and then that put us into a lot of debt here in PEI. So in 1873, Canada offered us a deal. They said, if you join the country now, we'll pay off all of your railway debt for you, and we'll also make you very well represented in Parliament. We thought that was a pretty good deal, so we accepted, and in 1873, PEI became the 7th province of Canada. So right now, we're driving to the community of Brighton. There's a lot of nice homes down here. Take a look to your right, you'll see a big pink one and a big green one next to it. They're very similar to each other. These are the only homes here in PEI that are made up of stucco. They were built by an island resident named Ivan Redden, and he was quite the traveler during his day. He visited places like Spain and California where he saw these stucco homes, and he loved them so much he decided he would build a community of them here in PEI. So he started off with those 2, but he put them on the market, and after about 10 years, still nobody wanted them. Islanders thought it would be too damp and uncomfortable to live inside. We were used to the homes we have already. So he lived in a pink one by himself, and he rented out the green one for a little bit. Didn't really go according to plan. Now to your right, you'll see our national defense. As I'm sure you guys can all probably tell, it's not very active right now. Our Jeep over there is actually hoisted up on a cement block, so don't think that's going anywhere too soon. just a moment as we come around the corner. It might be a little bit windy. We're going to be driving by the water here as we enter my favorite part of Charlottetown. This is called Victoria Park. So the park is pretty busy right now, as you can see. Here in Victoria Park, we have approximately 37 acres of public land, and it was all given to us as a gift from our Lieutenant Governor. We'll pass by his home in just a few minutes. So as you can see here in Victoria Park, on your left, we have our public swimming pool. Getting lots of waves over there. Just next to our swimming pool, we have lots of playground equipment for children, and lots of beautiful walking trails in behind the trees over there. Here in Victoria Park, we also have a baseball field, a few tennis courts, a nice dairy bar, and of course, off to your right-hand side, our beautiful boardwalk that runs along the perimeter of the park, and it's about 2 kilometers long. It's a great place to go for a walk or a jog on a nice summer evening. Now, alongside our boardwalk, you probably notice our island stones that are placed there, and they were placed there to prevent erosion, which is happening pretty quickly here on the island. We're getting smaller and smaller. Now, you might also notice that our stones here in PEI are very red-looking. Here on the island, we are famous for our red soil, or our red dirt. So does anybody know what makes our soil so red? Iron, exactly. We have a very high iron content in our soil. So basically when it mixes with the oxygen, it rusts it and gives it that red tint to it. And that also is very good for our potato industry. We're also very well known for our island potatoes. So about 1/3 of all the potatoes in Canada come from PEI, and agriculture is our #1 industry. Tourism is #2, and fishing is #3. Now the body of water you see off to your right-hand side, this actually is a connection point for 4 different rivers. So behind you all, way back there, we have our North River. That one over there, we call that one the West River. This one over here, that's called the South River. And can anybody guess what the one straight ahead is called? Most people would think it's the East River. Any islanders know what it is? It's actually called the Hillsborough River, so I usually trick people on that one. That runs underneath the Hillsborough Bridge, which connects us to the town of Stratford. And you can just see Stratford across the water over there. Now also across the water, right over there, you might notice a big green open space where those lighthouses are. That area is called Fort Amherst, and it was originally a French military base here in PEI. So our first inhabitants on the island were our First Nations Mi'kmaq people, and when they landed here on the island, they decided they would call us Abagwit, and Abagwit translates to cradle on the waves, which I think is a pretty nice description of PEI. However, the French came and they wanted to call us something else, so they named us Ile St. John, or St. John's Island, and we had that name for a little while. But then, of course, we were renamed once again Prince Edward Island, which we are still called today. And that name came from the British, of course. So back there, we just passed by our dairy bar. And off to your left-hand side, we have a lot of nice open space. People like to come here and have picnics, or maybe throw a frisbee or a football around in the evenings. Or more recently, a lot of people like to come here and play Pokemon, if anyone's into that. Now up here on your right, we're passing by Battery Point. Here in Battery Point, we have 9 cannons. However, all of them are full of cement and none of them were ever fired. So here in PEI, we were never attacked, which is great, but we were invaded once. Back in the 1700s, 2 privateers from New England arrived here in Charlottetown, and we didn't think too much of it at that time. We just thought they were coming to say hello, but we were wrong. They actually kidnapped 2 of our government officials, and they also stole our silver colonial seal. But they returned home to Massachusetts, and a messenger of George Washington met them, and he was not very happy with their mission. So he said, send them back. So our government officials returned home here to PEI, but they never returned our silver colonial seal. So if we have any Americans on board today who know where that is, we would like to get it back, please. So you'll notice here in PEI, it's quite a nice day today. The sun is shining and it's pretty warm out. Our average temperatures in PEI in the summertime usually range anywhere between about 18 and 30 degrees Celsius, so not too hot. It does exceed 30 degrees sometimes, but when that happens, the city usually clears out and we all go to the beach. So we have lots of nice beaches here in PEI. One of my personal favorites is called Basin Head Beach. Has anyone heard of it before? It's also known as the Singing Sand. The sand is famous over there because they say it squeaks when you walk on it. So that beach is located in eastern PEI, close to the town of Surrey, and it was actually voted the best beach in all of Canada just a few years ago. So check it out if you guys get the chance. Now take a look to your left, you'll see a big white house over here. This is home to our Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable Frank Lewis. And he basically is like a representative of the Queen. So anytime anyone from the royal family comes to visit PEI, this is where they stay, right over here in his home. They have bedrooms set aside upstairs just for them. So the Queen herself has stayed there on a few different occasions, and more recently in 2011, Prince William and Kate Middleton stayed there. We actually put a fresh coat of paint on the home just for their arrival. So the home was built back in 1834 by an island architect named Isaac Smith, and he also built Province House, and the home is called Fanny Bank. Now you'll see another beautiful home coming up in just a moment on your right-hand side, a big yellow, kind of goldish colored home. They call it Beaconsfield, and it was originally home to a very wealthy shipbuilder by the name of James Peake. The home was built back in 1877, and it was the first home here in Charlottetown to have central heating and gas lights. So when they turned on those gas lights, it gave a beautiful glow coming out of the windows, and then all of the neighbors, they came running with buckets of water to put out the fire that they thought was going on inside the home. Now, unfortunately, it was built around the time that our economy crashed here in PEI. Mr. James Peake had declared bankruptcy, and instead of shipbuilding, he actually worked as a custodian instead the last few years of his life. So a little bit of a change, but that's alright. You can also do tours of Beaconsfield. It only costs about $5 to go inside, and it's a really beautiful home. So I would check that out as well if you guys get the chance. And in just a moment, coming up on your left-hand side, we're going to be passing by Rochford Square. So this is a nice little park here in town. We actually have 5 of these squares here in Charlottetown. So if you think of the 5-faced side of a dice, what that looks like, think of Province House as that middle dot. We have 4 parks surrounding it, evenly spaced out across the city, and this would be the one on the top left. Now there's another one of these squares just a few blocks down from here, called Connaught Square, and that one was actually the site of the last public hanging in Canada. So there was an island resident named George Dowie. He got into a pretty bad firefight one night, and the other gentleman didn't turn out very well. So the law of the day was to be hanged. So they were going to do that down in Connaught Square. However, the rope actually snapped. He fell 6 feet to the ground and passed out, but he was still alive. So they said, come back tomorrow, we're going to try it again. This time, the branch that the rope was tied to snapped, and the same thing happened. He fell and passed out, but he was still alive. So they said the same thing. Come back tomorrow, we're going to try it one more time. This time, the whole city came out to watch, because they said back then, if you survived a hanging 3 times, it was an act of God, and that you were meant to live. So everyone came out to watch to see if it would work, but unfortunately, the 3rd time, it did work. Not a very happy ending to the story. They did put up some playground equipment down there, trying to make it a bit more friendly for everybody. And we just passed our fire department. Our fire department used to be in this building next door here to your left. This was also home to our police station, our jail, and our city hall, but now it's just city hall. You might notice the big bell sitting outside the building back there. They call it Big Donald, and it was named after our first fire chief here in Charlottetown. It actually used to be hanging up in the tower, but it fell down twice. Obviously, we're not very good at hanging things here at PEI. I figured we'd just leave it down there. Better safe than sorry, right? So right now we're heading down Queen Street. It's probably our busiest street here in Charlottetown. There's a lot of great restaurants and shops down this street as well. All of the shops you see along your left-hand side are part of the Confederation Court Mall, which takes up about the entire block. On the corner of it, up here on your left, you'll see Cow's Ice Cream. So has anybody tried Cow's Ice Cream yet? 2 people. Cow's Ice Cream was voted the best ice cream in Canada by Reader's Digest, and it was also voted the best ice cream in the whole world by World Talk Discovery. So anyone who hasn't tried it yet, I highly recommend it. It's absolutely delicious, and you will not be disappointed. They also have lots of cute t-shirts inside for sale as well. Now right across from Cow's, coming up on your left, we're going to be passing by the Confederation Center of the Arts. It's currently running Mamma Mia, and also the world's longest running musical that has been running for 52 years. Does anybody know what that one is? Anne of Green Gables, of course. We're very famous for Anne here in PEI. At our Confederation Center, we also have our public library, an art gallery, and a nice restaurant inside called Mavers. So if anyone's looking to learn more about Anne of Green Gables, head up to Cavendish. That's the place to be. That's where you'll find the Anne of Green Gables house. You can do tours of it as well. Now coming up in a moment on your left, you'll see another one of my favorite places in Charlottetown. It's called Victoria Row. Coming up right up here. This is our only pedestrian street here in Charlottetown, so you find a lot of great restaurants and shops down there as well. One of my favorites is called Fishbones, and they have a beautiful rooftop patio that you can enjoy. So that's a great place to hang out on a summer evening, and you'll often hear some live jazz music playing during Victoria Row on the weekends. To your left, you'll see Anne of Green Gables chocolates. I don't know if anyone has tried any of those yet, but those are delicious chocolates as well. And they also have chocolate-covered potato chips. I don't know if that sounds very appealing to anyone, but they're actually very good. We just passed by another great restaurant called Sim's Corner, and next to it, of course, our PEI liquor store. Like I said, we have the most liquor stores per capita than anywhere else in Canada, so you're never too far away from one of those. Not sure if that's something to be proud of or not, but it's true. Back there, we have a Starbucks coffee. I'm sure you've all seen one of those before as well. Charlottetown was the last capital city in Canada to get a Starbucks, so we're moving up in the world. Also down Queen Street, you'll find Piatto with the big red door down there. That's where you'll find some of the best pizza in town. They have authentic stone-cooked pizza, and next door to Piatto is where you'll find the Kettle Black. That's one of my favorite coffee shops here in town, and they have great sandwiches there as well. On the bottom of Queen Street, you'll find the Merchant Man. That's a great place to get some seafood. So do we have any seafood lovers on board today? You guys came to the right place. We have lots of seafood restaurants here in Charlottetown. I'll point out a few more along the way. So we just came off of Queen Street. You guys will probably notice we have a lot of royally named streets here in Charlottetown. So we were just on Queen Street. We also have Prince Street. That's where our kiosk is. So you guys were all there earlier. We also have a King Street, just a block down from here, and of course, Great George Street, which we are turning onto in just a moment. So to your left there, you'll see our Basilica once again. So like I mentioned earlier, this is our National Historic Street of Canada here on Great George. So the sidewalk over on your left-hand side, you might notice those stones are pretty big looking and they're quite old. Those stones are actually buried 6 feet into the ground. They have been there for quite a long time. Our fathers of Confederation actually walked down that exact same sidewalk way back in 1864 when they arrived here to attend the Charlottetown Conference.
If the painted lines on the sidewalk, what does that mean?
Someone asked me that earlier today. I actually am not quite sure. I'm going to try and find out.
Okay.
Yeah.
We walked down one and it was green, but mostly they're red and the yellow.
Yeah, I'm going to try and find out. So we're just heading down Great George. Now at the bottom of this street, straight ahead down by the harbor, that's where you'll find Peaks Quay. That's another great restaurant here in Charlottetown, and it's overlooking the water. It has some great seafood there as well. And that's also a nightclub here in Charlottetown. Now surrounding Peaks Quay, you'll find lots of great shops down there for tourists to check out. So if anybody's looking to get some souvenirs later on, that's a great place to go down there. Now, one of my favorite souvenirs here in PEI is called the PEI Dirt Shirt. Has anybody heard of that before? Yeah? So our island soil, it stains your clothes so easily, we thought we would use that to our advantage. We started dyeing our shirts with it. So you can buy a PEI Dirt Shirt, and they are dyed with 100% island soil. It's a pretty unique souvenir. You can take a little piece of PEI with you everywhere you go. Now coming up once again here on your left, you'll see a green building here on the corner. It's called Water Prince Corner Shop, and this is another great seafood restaurant here in Charlottetown. Back in 2010, Regis and Kelly visited the island to host a couple of live shows down on the waterfront, and they ate at that restaurant twice while they were staying here. They said it was their favorite place to get lobster in town. So if anyone's looking to get lobster later on, I would recommend Water Prince for sure. To your left, the freestanding stone building over there, that's our Visitors Information Center. So if anyone has any questions at all that we cannot answer for you, you can head on over there and I'm sure they'll be able to help you out. There's some more great seafood just to your left there at Dave's Lobster, just next door to our kiosk. Just passing by our kiosk, Devin's in there working hard. On the other side of us, we have the Chip Shack. Has anyone eaten there yet? Yeah, a couple people. So at the Chip Shack, they have the best fries in all of the island. So if anyone's looking to get some dinner later on, I would recommend the Chip Shack as well. Karen over there is very friendly, and she'll give you a free hug with your fries. And finally, one more great seafood restaurant straight ahead here is called Lobster on the Wharf, and they have a beautiful patio out back overlooking the Charlottetown Harbour. So we're about to head into the harbour for a little bit, but before we do, I'll give all of you a little bit of a safety talk. So I'll let you know that our vehicle is inspected and certified by Transport Canada, and our Captain Tom is certified as well. Our life vests are located just along the top of the vehicle here, and our children's life vests are located along the sides just next to your seats. Our main emergency exit is where you came on, but obviously we do have many along the side of the boat, and I'll show you quickly how to put on a life vest in the case of an emergency. It's a pretty low tide right now, so it might be a bit rocky. Maybe hold on to the chair in front of you or the railing next to you. Or in your case back there, maybe hold on to each other.
Santa Jackie. Can you see the water? Look at the water. You're in the water now, Jack. What do you think? It's pretty low.
What's that? Arden?
Gas station. You can slide up a little bit though as well.
Normally at this part of the tour we're playing music for you guys, so unfortunately it's not working right now. As we head into the water, it's pretty much everyone's favorite part of the tour most times. We play the Jaws theme, so it's pretty funny, and then once we land in the water, we play the theme for Gilligan's Island, so it's usually pretty funny, but I'm sorry, it's actually not working right now. What? It all fell apart. Alright, well anyway, we can do without the music for today, so welcome to the Charlottetown Harbour, everybody. Now look over to your left, the big green and white building you see over there. That is our cruise port here in Charlottetown. So throughout the summertime, we get a lot of cruise ships coming into the city. We usually have about one come in every week or so. There's one coming in tomorrow, actually. So that's where they dock right over there. And that building actually used to be an old potato warehouse. Some people say that it still smells like potatoes inside. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but if any of you are ever in there, maybe you can let me know. So while we're out here in the water, you might see a little bit of wildlife as well. There's usually lots of seagulls hanging out over there, but there's none right now. If anyone sees any of the big blackbirds, those ones are called cormorants. And we usually see some jellyfish hanging out in the water as well. On a rare occasion, we sometimes see a seal, but they tend to pop their heads up out of the water pretty quickly, so keep an eye out for them. And if anyone spots one, let me know, and we can all catch a glimpse of one. Now while we're out here on the water, you'll also get a nice view of our skyline here in Charlottetown. Now I know there's not a whole lot that sticks out in our skyline, but we do have our Delta Hotel on the water, and of course St. Dunstan's Basilica. You can see its spire sticking up above the trees over there. We actually have a law here in Charlottetown that no building can be taller than St. Dunstan's Basilica. However, the Delta is technically taller, but it's built on lower land, so it doesn't really look like it. The Basilica is still our highest peak. And that law was put into place basically because our bedrock here on the island is very weak and it's not strong enough to support any skyscrapers or any buildings that are too much taller than the church. Now also in a moment, on your right, you'll get a view of Great George Street just as we pass the little gazebo there. And you'll see Province House at the end of it. So we drove up that street earlier, and like I said, it's a National Historic Street of Canada. Because in 1864, our fathers of Confederation landed here in the harbour just in front of Peaks Quay, and they walked all the way up that street to Province House to attend the Charlottetown Conference, which led to the Confederation of Canada. So you get a nice view of it right there. Now I'll tell you all a little bit more history about that story. So originally, the three colonies of Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, they all wanted to come together to discuss the idea of becoming one union. So they decided they would hold that meeting here in Charlottetown at Province House. However, Upper and Lower Canada, which are now known as Ontario and Quebec, they caught wind of this meeting and they decided they would invite themselves to the party. It was literally a party because they brought with them 17 tons of champagne. They all wined and dined themselves until they all agreed to come together as one nation called Canada. So that took place in 1864. However, nothing was officially signed at that meeting. It wasn't until 3 years later, in 1867, that we officially became a country. but this is where the idea was born, and that's why we call ourselves the birthplace of Confederation here in PEI. So you might notice we have a lot of things named after Confederation here on the island. As we were driving downtown, we passed by our Confederation Court Mall and the Confederation Center of the Arts. Here on the island, we also have our Confederation Trail. That's our old railway, and it runs tip to tip across the island. It's over 200 kilometers long. Now they had to rip up the railway, but they were able to preserve it, and they turned it into a beautiful walking and cycling trail, and it's also used for snowmobiling in the wintertime. A little bit. Now also here in PEI, we have our Confederation Bridge, of course. So did anybody drive across the bridge to get here? A few people, very good. Our Confederation Bridge connects us to the mainland in the province of New Brunswick. It's about 13 kilometers long, and it takes 15 minutes or so to drive across. It was built back in the 1990s. They first started it in 1993, and it was officially completed in 1997. It's the longest bridge in the world over ice-covered water, and they also call it the 100-year bridge. That's because when it was built, it was designed to last 100 years. However, just 10 years after the construction of the bridge, they did an inspection to find out how much it aged. It came to the conclusion the bridge only really aged about 2 years, so it's doing quite well. Now, for those of you that drove across the bridge, you probably noticed there was a big curve in the middle of it. Does anybody know why they made it like that? There's a couple reasons. So ships can go under, exactly. There's one other reason. Anyone know what it is? Alright, so here in PEI, we're not used to any long stretches of highway, so they actually put that curve in the middle of the bridge to keep drivers awake. They were scared that islanders would fall asleep while we were driving across. They did it to keep us alert. Now to your right, you'll see our Charlottetown Yacht Club. There's a lot of nice boats in there today. Sometimes throughout the summer, today for example, we get some pretty big yachts coming in here. Sean Connery was actually here once with his yacht, and also Tom Cruise, he was here once with his. I'm not sure who owns that one, but it's probably someone pretty important, I'd like to think. Here in PEI, we also have the youngest age to start sailing than anywhere else in Canada. You only need to be 6 years old to get out on the water and start learning how to sail. So I don't know if there's any out right now, but earlier today there was actually a lot of kids out driving their sailboats. It's pretty cool to watch. Over to your right, the big yellowish colored building you see, those are some beautiful condos here in Charlottetown. Now I hear they range anywhere between about $500,000 to over $1 million, so they're pretty pricey. Definitely one of the more expensive places to live in Charlottetown. However, we do have some of the cheapest real estate in all of the country here in PEI. The average home here costs between about $120,000 and $140,000. So a lot of people like to think PEI is a great place to come retire, which it is if you can survive our winters, of course. So we have beautiful summers here on the island, as I was saying earlier. We have great weather and there's lots to do, but our winters, on the other hand, they're not always so pleasant. Not this past winter, but the year before, we received a record amount of snowfall. We received 17 feet of snow. So I got storm stayed at a friend's house for about a week long. I tried to leave, but all I could see was snow when I opened the door, so I wasn't going anywhere. And they canceled school so much they had to extend an extra week onto the end of the year. So it wasn't very fun for all of us students, if you guys can imagine that. It's not very fun. Luckily this past winter was much more mild, so I think all of us islanders are probably hoping for another one of those this upcoming winter season. Now at this part of the tour, I'm going to take a break from talking on the mic. I'm going to let all of you guys just sit back, relax, and enjoy the water. It's a beautiful day out here on the harbor. I'll come around to see if anyone has any questions or needs recommendations on anything at all, and I have some suckers to pass out if anybody wants one.